Entering free agency as well as the 2023 NFL Draft, it was apparent that despite having young stars scattered throughout the roster, the Carolina Panthers still had holes that they needed to fill on both sides of the ball. Well, at the conclusion of both of those events, as a fan, I'm proud to announce that many of those positions have been adequately filled, but there is one glaring weakness that we've had over the last few years that did not get directly addressed in free agency or this year's draft. So in this video, I'm going to give you all my thoughts on this situation as well as the potential of a young, dynamic, undrafted free agent potentially breaking through and becoming cornerback 2 for this upcoming 2023 season. And we're going to get into that right after this.
From the foe, you dig?
Welcome to The Way I See It with Jamario Rashad. This is a Carolina Panthers fan channel. Please do me a favor by hitting the like button and please make sure you subscribe as I am on my road to 2K, trying to make sure my channel is popping before the season starts next year. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get to this potential guy that we have in camp right now. If you do not know who I'm talking about, I am talking about former Last Chance U star and Oregon State player Rejzohn Wright. He comes to us by way of undrafted free agency, but he did not have to try out for the team, and there is a difference that I will get to later on in the video. But first, let me introduce you all to Rejzohn if you are not familiar with him or his story. Rejzohn coming out of high school was a two-star DB from James Logan High School in Union City, California, and he was in the class of 2018. And as far as where he was ranked the 407th best player in the state of California. So nationwide, you can only imagine that he was somewhere in the thousands. So with that being the case, with him being ranked so low nationally as well as in his own state, unfortunately, Rejzohn received absolutely no scholarship offers whatsoever coming out of high school trying to get into the college ranks. So what did he do following that? With that being the case, he decided to go the community college route, where he actually got the start of his fame. He was a member of the of Laney College in California for the 2018 and 2019 season. So in 2019 is when he actually had his breakout season at Laney. For during his Last Chance U season, he tallied 11 tackles, 1 interception, and two pass breakups. Although those stats may not be eye-popping or jump out at you when you hear them, you have to keep it in the context of this was community college. They play less games. There are more players that have to see the field, as everybody is trying to get their second chance at making it at a Division I, potentially even a Division II college. So please keep that in mind. But with those stats being what they were, he was at the conclusion of his tenure at Laney College ranked the 5th best defensive back in JUCO football entering the 2020 year. And with that being the case, unlike when he was coming out of high school, now that he had actual tape under his belt and he had coaches looking at him, he received offers from Colorado, UCF, Fresno State, Hawaii, San Jose State, UCLA, Utah State, and of course, Oregon State, where he would ultimately land, and this is where he would get on the radar of many NFL scouts. Now, when he got to Oregon State, this was during the 2020 season, which was actually shortened for pandemic reasons. So this is why everybody's afforded an extra year eligibility while we're drafting older players in these drafts, yada, yada, yada. So you get it. Where he broke out and where he actually established himself as an actual guy was during his 2021 season, where he tallied 51 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 8 pass breakups. Now, in this most recent season, his senior year before entering the 2023 NFL Draft, in his best season yet, he had 38 tackles, 2 interceptions, 9 pass deflections, and he was voted first team all Pac-12, and with that being an honor that he wears on his back, you can imagine why I deem this to be his best season yet. In the previous year, he had been on the honorable mention list, but as a senior, he was one of the best players in the entire country. Now, with this being the case, with him having the senior year that he had, draft projections all across the board, but the one that I'm going to focus on right now was the one produced by NFL.com themselves. They projected Rejzohn Wright to be a 5th or 6th round pick, a early day 3 guy, but unfortunately he went undrafted. But to keep in mind and to keep the context on that, this being a guy that we got as a priority undrafted free agent still could bring the caliber of play or the level of play as a early day 3 guy and potentially be better than that. So the value in his contract is just tremendous in what we got, being able to get him as an undrafted guy, man. So moving forward, what exactly are his measurables? Now, I could not find any tape as far as not tape. I couldn't find any combine numbers. I'm not exactly sure if he was invited to the combine, but all of the draft websites in terms of pro day and all of this information, I could find a consensus on these few things. He was listed at 6'2", 200 pounds. That is tremendous size for a corner, especially with the ability to be able to press up at the line and just throw guys off their route as soon as the ball is snapped. That size is something that is intangible, and that's just something that you can't teach. But he ran a 4.35 40 that just shows that although he is big and he can be physical, he also does have the speed and all of those other traits that would allow him to be a effective DB on the NFL level as well. Now, finally, this isn't necessarily an actual measurable, but it is for me. He has the family pedigree. If you follow the channel, you'll know that I certainly have a certain bias towards guys that already have family that play in the league. I feel as though those guys have a leg up on other players entering the league because they have somebody to give them direct insight into the level of competition, to give them direct advice on what their nutrition should be, what things they should be focusing on to get picked up, what things translate from where he comes from to where he's going. Now, he actually has a brother, Nashon Wright, that was drafted in the 2020 draft in the 3rd round by the Dallas Cowboys, also coming from Utah State. So he can speak to the T, completely specifically about what things they picked up under that coaching staff there, what things they learned growing up, what things that he has already instilled in him that will translate what he needs to change. That family pedigree is just something that is just completely invaluable, man. So that is why I see that as being a very unique measurable for a few players that do have that luxury entering the NFL. But moving on, now that we have a general idea of who Rejzohn Wright is, 2-star high school guy, last chance U star, broke out at Oregon State. Who exactly is he going against? Who is his competition? Who would he need to break out and defeat and be over on the depth chart to actually become the cornerback 2? Now, the guy that we already have established that is the longest tenured Panther in the cornerback room, in the DB room altogether, honestly, is Donte Jackson, who was drafted back in 2018 to be the successor of then all-pro level corner Josh Norman. We always had high expectations or just high hopes for this guy, but unfortunately, when you dive into the numbers for what he has been able to do on the field during his 5 years in the season, it has been uh, underwhelming to say the least. Now, to look at his career numbers, what you're seeing on the screen right now are his career averages. Now, in 5 years in the NFL, when he has been targeted, he has allowed a passer rating of 91.3. He has allowed a completion percentage of 63% when he is the primary defender when a pass is being thrown at the person that he is guarding. He has allowed on average 531 yards. He has allowed 4 touchdowns and missed. This right here is really the kicker when it comes to Donte Jackson. On average, he misses 4 games per year. That is 1/4. That is 25% of the entire year. You cannot depend on a guy that you expect to be your cornerback 2, logging just as many, if not more, minutes than your cornerback 1. You can't even depend on him to give you a full season so far more than once in his 5 years in the league. Now, even when he is on the field, during those games that he is actually out there, he's only on the field for 68.4% of the plays. Whether that be because he is schemed out, be it they are calling plays that he is not, that is not a package for him, or other times that many Panthers fans have seen where he is just getting his ass burnt and he just needs to just be on the sideline for a while because we don't understand what's happening. He has a bad tendency of having an injury whenever he gets blown by. There's always like a quad or it's like there's always there's always something, but he's always getting his ass burnt. And 5 years into his career, I'm honestly tired of seeing it. Do I still have hope for him? A little bit, not much. But do I think Rejzohn Wright could potentially come in and be over him? Yes, but I think the cards are stacked against him in that case only because of Donte Jackson's tenure with the team, man. But hopefully the overhaul of the coaching staff could have a differing effect on that outcome. Now, the second guy that he would potentially be fighting for that cornerback 2 spot is none other than CJ Burnt Toast Henderson, who is going into his 3rd year here with the Carolina Panthers after being traded for back in the 2021 season. CJ Henderson, throughout his short career, has not been anything remarkable, has been below average and not even a good player. Now let's look at what his career numbers. Now, when targeted, CJ Henderson has allowed a 113.4 passer rating, a 69 completion percentage. That is nearly 70%. That is nearly 7 out of every 10 times that a guy has had a pass thrown, that a quarterback has thrown in his direction, the receiver has caught the damn ball. That is crazy. Now, moving on from there, on average, not even being a starter, being a utility guy for majority of his career, into being thrusted into a starting position with the Carolina Panthers this past year with the injury to Donte Jackson, on average in 3 years, he has allowed 484 yards. Now, this most previous season, he allowed nearly 700 yards when he was a primary starter. So CJ Henderson gets his ass burnt all the time. He got his ass burnt in Jacksonville. He has been getting his ass burnt in Carolina. And this guy, unlike Donte Jackson, I don't have any hope for. And I hope and pray that the Rejzohn Wright is able to overtake him on the depth chart, man. But with that being said, what are my conclusions when it comes to the question, will Rejzohn actually be able to take over as cornerback 2? Now, I'm going to break this down as to 2 things: what works for him and what works against him. Now, what is actually working for him is the fact that cornerback was not a position that was directly addressed in either free agency or the NFL draft. Many people thought that we could potentially be taking a cornerback, be it Cam Smith from South Carolina to repair him up with J.C. Horn. But when that didn't happen, we picked a wide receiver, then went edge, and like as the chips fell, we never picked a cornerback. So with him being one of the only new young guys that we brought in, it seems as though the competition should be it should be a lot less, or he doesn't have a guy that is going to be favored over him because they didn't have to actually invest draft capital into a guy that they could potentially want to make work out, because their jobs would be behind that, man. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, he was not brought in just to try out. He was actually given a contract as a priority undrafted free agent. He has a contract with potential money on top of it, which just shows the confidence that they already had in him and shows that they had him on their draft board potentially before the draft, and that they see the value that he brings at the pick that he has now. But finally, man, what is working against him? Now, although CJ Henderson as well as Keith Taylor Jr. were two guys that were acquired during the Matt Rule era, I don't think that Scott Fitterer wants to give up on guys that he also has his name attached to so soon. Now, I know people may think, though, oh, it's a business. It's just hard-nosed this. You have to, like, it doesn't necessarily work that way, in my opinion. Although these were Matt Rule guys, Scott Fitterer did sign off on trading Dan Arnold and a third to go out and get CJ Henderson. He did agree on drafting Keith Taylor Jr. So he is incentivized to want to see the moves that he has his name attached to work out, no matter if they were in the past or not. So with that being the case, I can see CJ Henderson and Keith Taylor keeping the spots on the depth chart that they had last year, just to justify the capital that was put in behind them to acquire them. But that being the case, man, another reason that I say that Rejzohn Wright may have an uphill climb making this roster, and especially being cornerback 2, is one of the more under the radar moves that the Carolina Panthers made this offseason was acquiring and signing Eric Rowe, a veteran DB corner in this league for about 7 years now. They've signed him to a contract who could potentially pose a threat to Rejzohn's roster spot, as well as potential snaps that he could get, man. But with that being said, I am going to leave this debate right here, and I want to hear from you all, man. What do you all think about Rejzohn potentially being cornerback 2 this year? Do you think that he can do it? Would you like to see him do it? Is this a reach? Would you like to see the Panthers take a chance on him? Do you even think that he's going to make the roster, man? Whatever you think about this topic, let me know what you think about Rejzohn Wright potentially being he is a Carolina Panther, being a starter for the Carolina Panthers, man. With that being said, I am Jamario Rashad. This is the way I see it, and I'm out. Peace.